Well, hello, guys, and welcome to the Cruise Corner podcast. I'm your co-host, Jack Carter, and as ever, I'm joined by my fellow co-host, Will Payne. Will, how are you?
Yeah, all good, Jack. Great to be back as always.
Well, I'm excited to say that we're not alone because sat beside us is Cruise Trade News' brand new deputy editor, Josie Klein. Josie, welcome.
Thank you. So great to be here.
Great to have you on the team.
Well, some of you listening may be familiar with Josie because obviously you've been working in the travel industry and within cruise for quite a while now, but you took an exciting hiatus to move to Australia. What was that experience like?
I did. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I think I was, working in the travel industry, seeing all these amazing places and thought, I want a bit more. So yeah, spent a year living in Sydney, which was just phenomenal. And then spent the last few months traveling back through Southeast Asia. So it's been great, but great to get back in the nice weather that we've got here. So I made great decisions, but no, absolutely thrilled to be back in the travel industry and to be here with you guys.
Brilliant. Are there any obviously your role now kind of focuses primarily on cruise. Is there anything about sort of this sector that you're really excited to kind of sink your teeth back into again?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing some cruise before, so I've been keeping it kind of up to date while I've been away, but it just seems like it's growing so exponentially. I feel like I'm reading about new ship launches constantly across ocean and river, and I think I'm just really excited to see kind of what's going to come in the next weeks, months, years, because it's a sector that feels like it's just unstoppable right now, and it's really exciting to be able to be at the forefront, hearing about everything and being really on the pulse. So yeah, just thrilled to be back within cruise.
Well, talking of being on the forefront, we really threw you into the deep end in your first couple of weeks because you were at the official launch of Cruise Trade News' second annual report, which we're going to be diving into a little bit more deeply in a second. But what were some of your key takeaways from that night, which is where we were kind of really presenting the key data points from the report? What jumped out to you?
The first thing that jumped out was what a brilliant report it was. It was a fantastic piece of work. You guys should be so proud. Really insightful, fascinating, some really interesting intel.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome. One of the things I was really interested in was a stat on river cruising, which was that 84% of 18 to 34-year-olds were interested in taking a river cruise, which I was really interested in because I've always thought of river cruises being perceived as being for an older demographic. Yeah. And I think often it's pitched as being for an older demographic. So there's obviously huge opportunity there to get younger people on board. And I think that the river cruise lines have a job to do to market themselves to a younger audience because clearly there's the demand. So it's an exciting time, really.
Brilliant. Well, before we kind of take a little look at the different sectors and what kind of our survey told us about how they plan to cruise. I mean, Will, this has sort of been your project over the last few months, and I know it's been a huge process trying to get it from what was essentially just an infinite Microsoft spreadsheet to this sort of condensed, succinct 50-plus page report. I mean, talk to us a little bit about kind of what the intentions are behind this report and kind of that journey that you went on to get to where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was, as you say, definitely a bit of a mission to put together, as you know yourself from producing our first report last year. The stats we get through from Mail Metro Media are just so in depth.
So we partnered with Mail Metro Media.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So you partner with MMM, who they poll their readership. The team over there, Robertino, Rich, Solana, were absolutely incredible to work with. The data that we got was so rich. We're going to have content and stories throughout the whole year. Obviously, digesting everything into this report was really enjoyable. I mean, even for someone like myself who's always in the industry, you learn so much from the consumers and the stats that you do get, which is great. So yeah, it involved working with the team to find out exactly what we wanted to achieve. Obviously, we want the report to be a sense check on the industry, what some of the trends that's come, where we've come from over the last few years. And the best thing about this report is that we had the comparative data to last year. Obviously, with last year's report, it was our first ever one. So it was sort of a bit of a basis and somewhere to start. Whereas now we could actually take a look at how the industry's developed over the past year, which was great. Another thing we did for the first time is we actually interviewed some of the respondents, thanks to the team over.
Yeah, that was really insightful.
I really enjoyed that. And we had a lot of really great feedback from the people who came to the launch that saying, it's all well and good reading it from, other people and experts in the industry and from our point of view, but from actually hearing it from the people who are on the ships and their thoughts on everything from onboard amenities to cruises' mission around sustainability is so valuable, which is excellent to hear.
Well, let's just dive in a little bit then. So when you're putting this together, what for you were some of the most revealing findings, and what can cruise line employees and travel agents learn from that?
Yeah, well, for me personally, the biggest finding, and something that you can read about in the report, was that 42% of people who have cruised before say they look elsewhere for their next holiday. Now, on the face of it, that is a little bit alarming for the cruise industry.
Remember, we're talking all the time about cruises growing and more people are coming into the industry, with this sort of hints at people actually turning away from cruises.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all centered around, look, cruises got tons of capacity coming on over the next few years. We all know that. Cruise is growing, it's really popular, which is excellent. Now, with all that extra capacity, the industry needs to find new people to go on the ships. That goes without saying. But with that laser focus on the new to cruise market, is cruise losing sight of its loyal customers? And look, it's a really important stat, and that's what we want to do with the report. We want to highlight the things where cruise can improve. Now, yes, it is alarming, but there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity to try new ways, to market, to get people reinterested, or maybe to get people to try a different type of cruise, or going from ocean to river, or river to luxury, or luxury to expedition, whatever that may be. So there's tons of opportunity there. And one of those biggest opportunities was something else that our report found, that 55% of repeat cruisers would be interested in cruising again if it was preceded by or followed by a land stay. Now, I know on the report launch, Jack, you hosted a panel about the land and cruise market, which is a super exciting market and somewhere we can see real growth coming in the next few years.
Yeah. So Josie, as someone, Will and I are so kind of involved in cruises, all we write about, we cover it from all these different angles, but you kind of have more of a broader travel background. So looking at this report, are there any sort of blind spots that the cruise industry might be missing?
That's a really good question. And yeah, I mean, there always will be. So I think one of the really interesting things that came out of the report was about the hybrid holidays and about having cruise as one element, but also having land as another. And I think that if you are concerned, well, as the stats say, concerned about losing people from the cruise industry, they're interested in trying something else, that's a way of keeping them within cruise, but also offering them an alternative holiday as well. So they get the best of both worlds. Yeah. I think that could be a really great sell to those people that are saying, I've tried cruise, I'd like to try land. You can say, well, you don't have to have one or the other. You can have the best of both worlds. And I mean, one of the stats in the report was that 72% of 18 to 34-year-olds would take a cruise if it was preceded or ended with a land holiday. So there's obviously a huge demand for it. And I think the cruise industry needs to really pay attention to that. And it's a great opportunity for agents as well to try and package holidays together and use cruise as one element and land as another element to keep their customers interested.
We spoke to Luke Smith from Crystal Cruises as part of that piece, and he said something really interesting, whereas if you're trying to attract maybe some more new to cruise people into the sector, land and cruise can be great because all of a sudden a cruise becomes less of a risk if you've never tried it before. Yeah. Because if a cruise is just a third of that holiday, then you're going to have a great time on the other 2/3. And you're probably going to be in the right frame of mind to enjoy the cruise. So I think that was really insightful. Another thing that we spoke about, which we didn't last year, was this whole over-tourism issue. I mean, last summer, we really saw the over-tourism debate reach boiling point, particularly in Southern Europe, where a part of the world that sees a huge amount of cruise traffic. We wanted to kind of get an understanding of to what extent will over-tourism impact people's holiday choices, but also what was really interesting is to what extent do travelers actually blame cruise for over-tourism? I'll read out a couple of stats here. 46% of repeat cruisers say cruise is more to blame for over-tourism than any other type of holiday. And that's slightly fewer for the new to cruise side, which is 34%. I mean, is this something that the cruise industry really needs to get ahead of in order to start shaping this conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, it's one of those things, I think you put it quite well in your presentation, is that when passengers and when tourists and destinations think of over-tourism, cruise is so visible in this world. You see a big ship turn up and you can literally see it happening. Whereas everyone else who's going by land stay or hotel, hostels, whatever it might be, you can't see that initial impact of it. Whereas cruise, you can. As I say, you see the ship turn up and everyone gets off and it gets busier. Restaurants are packed, you can't find a table. And people will naturally just blame that big white ship in the background. So I think, in the reports people can read, it obviously isn't all cruises' fault. It's based elsewhere in some parts, but I think cruise needs to get ahead of that message, because at the end of the day, people will they'll see what they see and they'll develop their own, conclusions without, actually reading into it. So I think it's just important to get across that message, work with tourist boards, land operators to really make sure that, because cruise does so much work in supporting local economies, and that's the positive message of all these tourists going in one place, is how much the industry actually gives back to these destinations.
Yeah, so really it's a kind of about cooperation.
Absolutely.
And continuing to kind of really have foster these positive relationships with tourist boards and local governments.
Definitely.
Just on that, I think it's really important for people to remember that there are only a certain amount of cruise ships that are able to dock at any one time. There are all these precautions put in place to ensure that there aren't too many people all getting off at once, and there will still be space. So although it is really easy to see a ship turn up and thousands of people get off and be like, okay, well, that's the problem, there's day trippers and other people that are coming in that are also causing over tourism. So I think that cruise does need to put that word out there and explain that although they are bringing thousands of people to a destination, it's not just based on them. Like, they have really strict rules in place, and they book these berths years in advance to ensure that that won't happen. So I think that there's definitely work to be done to make people aware of that.
Absolutely. So well, that's a snapshot of the data in this report. If you want to seek out this data for yourself, then head to cruisetradenews.com. On the homepage for the next few weeks, you're going to be able to see a download link to the annual report. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you're going to be seeing lots more unique content from the report going straight into your inbox, all with call to actions, so you know exactly where to go to download this. It's free to download, and I really, really urge you guys to digest what's inside, because this year's going to be the most in-depth kind of temperature check on the cruise industry to date. Well, before we leave you, we are going to cut to a week ago, the official launch of this, where we spoke to some of the delegates and asked them about some of the data points that kind of surprised them most.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Robertine and Tompa from Mail Metro Media, our wonderful research partners for the annual report 2026. Robertina, we've just heard some of the key findings from the report. Now, you more than anyone knows how much effort has gone into putting this together. And as you said, massive thanks to you and the team for helping us do it. From your perspective, why is it important to support things like this in cruise?
I think it's really important to have specific insight in the industry. Like, for us as a huge media company, we talk to 61% of the whole nation and the whole population. Everyone thinks of us as like a media company. We would like to be strategic partners for all cruise lines, but for that, it's so essential to have that specific industry-led knowledge and insights to back that up. And then also, like, that's not the only thing. Also to have that outcomes-led planning with the specific insights. And that's why we feel like this specific insights piece, like the annual report, is so different compared to what we have out there in the market, because we have here consumer and trade insights together. And I think it's really important to give that sort of sentiment to the whole industry, to have the whole perspective together.
Yeah, and something different we did this year, obviously was our partner last year as well. Something that we did slightly different was we actually spoke to some of the respondents, or your team spoke to the respondents, and that produced some really interesting content. And we've already spoken with some of the cruise lines, and they said having that access to consumers themselves, who, as Luke from Crystal put very well, is completely unscripted. You know, consumers will say whatever. It's not behind a PR wall or anything. So having that, and obviously hearing from Mail Metro's readers, is really important. So what was it like putting all that together? Obviously, I know, you've got a brilliant team behind you who have really helped, and there was tons of data. So doing that, what was the thoughts behind that?
Well, we had 2 people assigned to this project, and I mean, you have been working with them, through the whole process, and it's like months and months of, real hard work going through the questions and, like really analyzing what actually we would like to find out from our readers, and really go down the actual granular details to kind of have that proper narrative about what actually is going on and what the trends are. But with regards to those videos, actually, we had to assign those 2 people for a whole week to interview every single people who we had. And they were doing nothing all that week. And you can imagine, like, it can be a fun part of it, but also, like, it's a very tricky, long-winded process. I'm sure you can tell me about how to cut them together to a short, snippy way.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it was putting together a report from our side of things. And you say it's challenging in some parts, but at the same time, it's really enjoyable. And I found I was learning stuff. And hopefully, cruise very well, better than anyone, really. hopefully you learn things as well that, as you say, you can take back and cruise lines can use and you can use it in different places. Was there anything in the report that sort of surprised you or sort of stuck out, something that you'd like people to really focus on?
Yeah, I think it was great to have that sort of the first report. It was clearly about, the complexity of cruises and how it's a different, for consumer perspective, it was difficult to understand for our readers.
Yeah.
It's very different from a land-based holiday. And I think to have that confirmation from our readers and actually tell, to all of our cruise lines that we actually need to simplify that in our advertising campaigns and with the messages that we are delivering. And then also to explain that with the editors in terms of, you need to help us to talk about the logistical side that people are super interested in. But, like me working with the clients, we don't have the space to talk about them.
That's fun.
So, like last year, that was amazing to learn that. And this year, the surprise was actually like written customers are not that easy. And it's like we kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of reason for that. Part of it could be then, people are not going on the right cruise at the first time. That's why agents are super important in this cycle. And again, like we are joining the dots together with consumer, advertising, the trade side and agents as well, because they actually have the chance to explain all those little details on the phone and give that confidence to anyone who is considering a cruise. Or even, the customers who have been on a cruise, but something didn't go as well, or something has put them off, or they actually may have been swayed away by other offers. I think we really do need to drill down the real whys, and the lifetime of, the customers is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're totally right. And it's the piece we focus mainly on in the report, as well as everything else in terms of the marketing trends and river trends, expedition trends, which people can read. It'll be live digital on Cruise Trade News with print product available as well. But Robertina, again, thank you so much for your help in putting this together. Thank you for joining us tonight for the launch event, and wish you all the best for the year. Thank you.
Well, I'm joined by Anthony Daniels, newly crowned chairman of the Expedition Cruise Network. Thank you for joining us. So, look, what were some of the stats that immediately jumped out to you from our annual report?
As always, I think it's the opportunity. I mean, it's great to see that the report you've got, I forget the exact number, there's nearly 50-50 of cruised and haven't cruised. And I think that always has a depth of insight in there. You want to learn from those that haven't come in. So, one, the opportunity. Two, small ship expedition are the trends that we're seeing. So from a ECM point of view, it's great that we're kind of supporting and following that trend. So that for me was kind of the core and certainly the biggest kind of element of opportunity.
You mentioned opportunity a few times there. I mean, we were very deliberate in building a survey that gave our respondents the opportunity to reflect honestly about cruise and their perception toward cruise. And through that, we outlined some potential challenges and things potentially to be worried about. But what was really clear is that how those challenges can be spun into opportunities. So as someone who's now leading ECN and who also works for a small ship luxury operator, what were some of the opportunities that can sprung to mind?
Well, I think it's about the education. So, when you're doing expedition, it's such a pristine destination that we're going to, that we've got to be really mindful of that protection. And I think if we get that messaging right about actually the positive impact we have on the local environment, but also the local communities that we engage with in the outer reaches of the destinations, that one of the areas that was obviously covered in the presentations about over tourism. Now that's in the main markets and the main destinations, but there's an element of over tourism in the small communities.
Of course.
So we're very mindful as a group, and obviously the company I work for, that what we do when we go there, it's got to be positive. We want to be welcomed with open arms, and that's why that local community engagement is so important, that if we can get that right, that opportunity of everyone that wants to do wildlife expedition off the beaten track, everything that we're seeing in your report, if we get the messaging and the confidence right for people to go, they're doing it how we want to do it on a small ship and with a positive response from the local community.
With a conscience.
Absolutely. Then all of a sudden that connection is really going to be golden.
The ECN sponsored the expedition section of the report. Do I want to get your thoughts on what kind of some of the wider expedition trends that you guys are seeing?
obviously the growth that we're seeing from the polar destinations is still kind of king, as it were. But what's really nice is the two other trends that we're starting to see. And one is non-cruisers engaging with expedition. They're seeing that as a key opportunity to transition from, let's say, safari or touring, or so that first kind of experience of coming in. And the second part of it is those that have done Antarctica and the Arctic and the polar, the more kind of historically strong destinations, and now looking at it going, I like that style, but where else can we go? So the immersions of Galapagos, but also Kimberley and Asia and Australasia and even Scandinavia. Some people are now looking at going, well, actually, I can do the Med, Scandinavia, Baltic, but on an expedition. So we've got to kind of embrace that growth of that's bringing people into the world. They want to carry on doing it, but still on the small ship mindset. So you've got that trend, which is really nice. So opening up the global opportunity for expedition.
And presumably that will alleviate some of the pressure around sort of the poles, around Antarctica, which, you know, we're seeing growing visitation every single year.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we support is the kind of the parameters that all of the local communities have got in place. ECM works with a lot of the kind of governing bodies, for the want of a better word, that protect these pristine areas. So if they're saying they're going to cap the products at a certain level, or there's going to be surcharges for certain destinations, then that's only supported by us in the right manner, because it's the money that's going back in and the control that's protecting. So that's happening, and that's also kind of enhancing that next step. So absolutely the right thing to do.
Excellent. Anthony, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Cheers.
Hello, I am Josie Klein, the Deputy Editor of Cruise Trade News, and I'm here with Yaz McKechnie, who is Princess Cruises Sales Director for the UK, Ireland and EMEA. And we've just had some really interesting stats from our Inside Report. And of course, you were involved with the Inside Report.
Wow.
Yeah, so tell me a bit about why you felt like it was important to get involved.
I think it's really useful for us to understand some of the trends and the key bits of insight that maybe we don't have access to as a brand. We have a fantastic insight team, but there's always more that we can know and more that we can learn that can help support our business as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And destination was a big focus for you when you rode your piece. So tell me a bit about why destination is a real push for Princess.
I think we've noticed that there are just some different trends coming out of the UK predominantly of where we need to focus our time. So there's some really key markets for us as we move forward, the Mediterranean, Alaska and Caribbean, that we might not have focused on as much in the past, that are integral for our business as we move forward. So it's why the destination has really become the heart of what we focus on.
Yeah. And why are those destinations, you think? What's so special about those now?
I think there's a couple of different things. The new capacity that we've had with the Sphere class ships, both Sun and Star Princess, are based in the Caribbean and Alaska. So it's meant we've got more guests to find in those regions. But I also think guests are just more eager to travel further afield than what they have been previously.
Do you think that's an impact with the pandemic? We're still seeing a kick on from that?
I think so. I think people just have got so many more destinations on their list after being told for so long that they couldn't travel.
Yeah. I think the desire to get out, especially with the weather as it is at the moment.
Doesn't help.
No, anyone wants to get away. Yeah, absolutely. So, were there any other things that really interested you out of the report from some of the findings today? I know you haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet, but just from the top line stuff today.
I think it was the stat that said about how many people are eager to take a land stay, either pre or post cruise. I think that just cements that the direction that we're focusing on at Princess is the right one. Focusing on fly, long haul and short haul fly propositions both have the ability to add pre or post stays. So it's just something we need to leverage further and work with our travel agents on. They have so much more at their fingertips when it comes to post stays, touring, than what we potentially do as a brand. We need to work closer and do more of that.
And just before we wrap up, what do you think your message would be to your travel agent partners about the value in adding those pre or post land stays?
So I think the good thing about Princess is we've got 17 ships across 345 destinations worldwide. If there is a destination that your guest wants to go to on holiday, we are bound to have a ship there that can complement that. So let's try combining the two options.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Yaz. It was lovely to
Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, so I am here with Luke Smith from Crystal Cruises. Luke, we've just listened to the launch of C10's Annual Report 2026. Initial thoughts?
Yeah, really, really interesting to be fair. Like I said to you earlier, it's
really nice to have something a bit different for the industry that really delves into the insights and what the consumers are actually thinking and feeling. Because one I noticed in the bits that you pulled out of the report today is that there's some really actionable intel in there about the way that we market the product, the way we talk about the product, and what is actually important from the consumer without us guessing, like hearing it firsthand.
Yeah.
And I noticed this year you've got the little video excerpts as well, which was a nice little touch. So yeah, really good.
And that sort of stuff, having those little excerpts, that's quite key as well, I assume, hearing it straight from the consumer instead of through the voice of us. Obviously, we can give you the analytical side, but hearing it from people who actually are booking cruises must be quite crucial.
I completely agree. And for me, I think actually, like I say, hearing it from the horse's mouth, they're hearing like unfiltered because, the general public, they're not scripted. They're not, tailored in terms of what you ask. You haven't prompted them beforehand. You've asked them to send in a video. What would be lovely is to actually get all of the video submissions edited as kind of like one large file that could be shared with the cruise line. So that, like I say, we can, because my aim with this is I want to share this with marketing. I want to share this with reservations. I want to share this with commercial, all the different areas of the business, so that we can actually be making informed changes on how we talk about and sell our cruises.
Definitely. And sort of speaking with marketing and all these things to get those changes, obviously one of the biggest takeaways from our report this year is that sort of maybe loss of focus on repeat guests. Obviously there's such a huge focus on new to cruise, as it should be, lots of capacity. So what are you guys doing to make sure that your customers keep coming back?
So I think possibly this is one of the areas of the report where the luxury sector is outperforming what you're seeing in the overall report. I mean, our repeat rate at Crystal is, over 70%.
Brilliant.
And what we're seeing is like diehard loyalty almost, to the point where we actually introduced a brand new level of loyalty to our Crystal Society called Percempla. But I think the thing that we find with our past passengers is giving them that voice, giving them that forum. And they are, Crystal, we kind of operate as that family, that home away from home type of thing. And so we consult our top level Crystal Society members before we launch anything, before we kind of either make decisions around new ships and itineraries. And when there's inaugurals or, anything important happens, those customers are invited on board or to be a part of it at head office or to meet with our CEO or whatever it is. And I mean, there'll be regular occurrences where, they'll message on Facebook and in all of the kind of past passenger groups, and our CEO will respond to them directly. And so it's a very top-down approach to past passengers.
It's quite personal as well. And I think that personal touch is so key.
I mean, and it goes from the moment they step on board a ship with their heart handed a glass of champagne and they're welcome home. It's that kind of feeling. So we understand very much that, especially within luxury for Crystal, past passengers are vitally important, but actually it's also those new to brand and new to cruise people that having that partnership with Abercrombie and Kent, for example, it offers those customers who have done luxury land-based holidays a comparable product on the sea. And that's what we're seeing real success with.
And you mentioned your partnership with A&K there, just as a final point, and obviously a big part of the report and our presentation is about the exciting land and cruise market. Something I know is really important for you guys as well is our economists for the report as well. So talk a bit about that.
So look, we are, on the Abercrombie and Kent side of the business, like one of the leaders in destination experiences. The amount of DMCs that Abercrombie and Kent utilize is vast. And so we're able at Crystal to offer either pre or post cruise stays, as well as overland excursions during the cruise, with a company that shares our same ethos around service and quality and everything else, and really authentic experiences. And then that translates very much onto the onboard experience. So that marrying up of the ship and the shore in kind of partnership products worked extremely well, and we are seeing a really great intake of Crystal customers taking Abercrombie and Kent land-based and Abercrombie and Kent customers adding a Crystal cruise to their stay. So it works for everyone.
And that's exactly what we tried to catch from the report. So hopefully you enjoy it.
Yeah, and I urge everyone to read it because genuinely it's nice to see people doing something different in the industry, and there's a lot of actionable intel in there.
Brilliant.
So,
Thanks very
great.
much, Luca. Thanks so much for joining us.
No worries.
Cheers.
Okay, I am joined here by Amanda Doherty, Head of UK Trade for Riviera Travel. So we've just presented the report. What were some of the stats that jumped out to you?
Well, firstly, it was really interesting, a great overview. Particularly loved the session dedicated to River as well. I think for me, in terms of sort of my role and how I can support and learn, take something away from the insight, 27% of respondents said that they're really reliant on that travel agent input and support, advice. So I think for me, one of the things that I'm already thinking about is what can we do to support the travel agent more? Another really useful snippet of information was things as simple as the video tutorials. Customers really want to sort of see and understand what is the product. So I think there's lots of opportunity in terms of thinking about what can we do to improve the knowledge with the travel agent to be able to pass that on to not only the new to river sector, but also the experienced cruisers that have sailed as well. So again, my mind at the moment is just going into overdrive because there was so much useful information.
There was a really interesting soundbite from another travel agent who said that they're fearful that there's going to be a saturation of products in the river sector and it's going to be harder for river cruise lines to find their audience. What were your thoughts on that specifically?
I think it's just about that whole variety piece as well, because there is so much opportunity across the different durations, the different rivers. I thought something that was particularly interesting as well was the London tour section. So there was a lot of appetite, obviously, from our respondents to maybe combine that type of holiday. And for us as a brand, that's something that we do. So I was interested in that and how can we sort of pull out that opportunity more. In terms of the saturation, I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's so much scope, there's so much differentiation between the different cruise lines in terms of what they offer as well. So for me, I think that's more of an opportunity as opposed to sort of a threat. I think it's great that River's out there. It's becoming more attractive, it's becoming more appealing. There was a lot of, again, interesting information into the demographic. It was a really high proportion of the 18 to 34-year-olds. I think it was 84% that said, you know what, we'd be open to try a river cruise.
Yeah, that was maybe fun. That was surprising for us as well. I mean, typically you think of river cruises as the higher age bracket, but clearly there's a growing desire and hunger from younger travelers to try cruise for the first time.
And I think it's that whole, presenting it, the city break alternative. There's some great opportunity there. And I think something else that came through for the insight as well is just demystifying perhaps the value aspect, because ultimately we saw from the insight that a lot of people need that reassurance on what they're getting for what they're getting when they invest in that. So again, there's sort of a lot that we can do to just continue elevating that value message as well, because there's so much included versus different types of holidays.
Brilliant. Amanda, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.